Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, my friends, and welcome back to the Cozy Club. Hopefully you guys are having a fantastic start to your week. We've got a little bit of an unconventional video for y'all today. You see, we are going to be having the Cozy Fireside Chat. Now, we're going to be having on some great guests today. We're going to be talking about two major subjects that a lot of you guys want to hear more on, but a lot of the conversation happens on my stream. Now, whether you choose not to come to the stream, you can't make it, whatever it might be, I thought today would be an important video to make for you guys that for some of you is going to be a little more podcast based, but we're going to be having video the entire time with some different visuals, and we're going to be talking about the following two subjects. Our first guest, we're going to be talking about the heroic raid. We're going to be talking about key characters for the heroic raid, the little differences in how to achieve and how to actually get your club to accomplish heroic, and it's all about the little things. And then our next conversation is going to be with app developers, not for DSA, but they're going to be mobile developers, talking about the game as a whole and the biggest issues with all the different bugs and some things so that you guys get a little bit of a better understanding. And so it's going to be a long video. You guys feel free to turn this on the way to work, whatever you might want to do. But again, I thought this would be super helpful to a lot of you guys to understand both of these important subjects. Now, with today's video being a little bit on the longer side, you guys are going to see on the bottom different tags to know when each subject starts. So if you want to hear more about the raid, you can do that. Or if the development bug side of the game has more of your interest, you can check that out as well. Hopefully you guys find this interesting. If you want more of these videos, let me know. Subscribe if you haven't, and sit back, relax. I'm going to pass things over to yesterday's Cozy. Again, this is coming from my live stream, and if you guys want more of this, you guys can certainly check this out live on Twitch. Let's go ahead and begin. Go ahead and let us know, Willis, for those that don't know who you are and kind of, I mean, you're not that important, but who, you know, for who you are, go ahead and explain, yeah, man, who are you?
Right. So my name is Willis Fails, and primarily what I do for DSA is I'm the leader of Plan B, which is one of the fun clubs that we have in this community. And I am a raid lover. It's the only thing that I like doing for this game.
I was going to say, the raid is it. Like, that is the game you play. PvP, you don't care about. I mean, right. Anyone else there in the chat, guys, or on YouTube here, are you just all about the raid? Is that really what you care? And I think that's interesting because, well, it's like some people really love the PvE aspect and some people really love PvP. And you find yourself being on. Is that because you've played other mobile games that are more PvE focused, or what's the difference?
I feel like with the raid specifically in PvE, there's more room for creativity, right? You do have some room in PvP, but you just have less, like you can't make things like gargoyles work that well sometimes, right? Or like I'm finding good use for Kronk. And that's something that people don't really get to say in PvP.
Oh, man.
So it gives me more flexibility. Oh, yeah. Kronk is a low-key sleeper.
Okay. I'm excited to hear about some of this. Now we probably just deterred half the people away from here. No. So
yeah, I'm an expert. Trust me.
Yeah. So welcome in, YouTube. We are going to be talking about the little things and the key differences of the raid today, and talk about a lot of different things that you may not be aware of that can make a pretty massive, big difference. And so, well, let's kick us off. What's the first thing that we want to talk about? I know we have a few things that we want to go ahead and address. And
so how do you get to heroic, right? I think that's really the hardest thing because it's a very difficult raid. And you're not just going to end up there, or if you do, it'll take you a long time. So you need a little bit of strategy. And so I think there's a key to heroic that I probably should talk about.
That's right now, I feel like people are starting to finally get the Sorcerers chosen. They're finally starting to be, that was the big roadblock for a lot of clubs. They're starting to finally farm those up. And then once you get those chosen, there's kind of that next barrier, right? And you guys, you're from Plan B. You guys just finished, and again, Plan B, very relaxed club, YouTube audience, and people that don't know, very relaxed club, not super strict. And so this is coming from a club leader that there's not, you don't have to be a drill sergeant to get this done. What were the biggest differences from the earlier raid to heroic, making that jump?
Different Titans have their place. Obviously, the thing about this raid is you can start with any Titan. But there's certain Titans that if you do them first, it just makes your life easier.
Okay.
Right. And once you've experienced the raid a few times, especially having to go through, sorry, that's my dog. When you explain the raid a few times, especially having to go through Rock last, you realize that like the tenacity and the rock lasts or the tornado lasts, you just don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
And so is it the same? Is it the main one? Do you guys typically do the rock and the tornado at the same time? Which this goes for any tier, rock and tornado at the same time, and then finish the other two?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we do the rock and the tornado at the same time because those really don't interact with each other that much, right? You can't really land any debuffs on the rock anyway. And so the speed meter doesn't really make that much of a difference. And then you don't really need a ton of debuffs on the tornado either. And so you can usually do those two at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you said that. So a big thing that we're going to talk about today is like the little things that aren't in, whether they're my YouTube videos, guys, or when you guys come on stream, they're just not talked about a lot. And we've talked about some of them on stream here, like the importance of tanks and that no one really thinks about that. I mean, you saw what Christoph just soaked that damage up. Let's start talking about some of those little things, Willis, that like you noticed, like, okay, once we started dialing in and focusing on these things, you started to see either bigger damage runs, like more success, either for you or like your entire club.
Yeah, of course. And so I think one of the good examples with this is the Ian team, right? So just really quickly, general structure of how we approach heroic. And I think the fastest way would be you have at least 6 to 10 people with Eve teams. And if you don't know what an Eve team is, I'm sure Cozy has a video on it. And then that takes down the tornado. You throw fear teams at the rock. You throw Ian teams at the lava. You throw everything else at ice. And so that's kind of how we churn things out. And one of the things with the Eve team, with the Ian team, you'll see a big difference between the people that can do like 700,000 and then people like D-Crew who can do 1 million. Right. And so the real thing that you want to get the Ian, and like that's a big difference between 700,000 and like 1.7 million. Sorry. Right. That's like a 1 million point difference. And the thing that really makes a difference there is making sure that Ian has both offense up and crit damage up. Like just having those two things, that makes a huge difference. And so,
sorry, go ahead. No, okay, finish that thought.
And so one of the things that D-Crew taught me is that if your Ian, when you do his first special, he'll sometimes grant himself offense up, right? And so if he has offense up already, you don't need bubbles to give him offense up. So you can give the ticket from bubbles to Barley, and then Barley guarantees crit damage up to Ian, and now you have both.
Yeah.
And so it's just these little things like that, man. Like just one move, and you're making one choice that makes a huge difference.
And that's the thing about making videos sometimes about these teams, right? Like I can teach core concepts, but there are little things that really start to make the difference of, like you just said, and it comes down to knowing the game and game mechanics and things like that. But so to go ahead, and I was going to run an Incredibles team, but I'll show this later because I want to actually go to Ian to show the chat some of the abilities we're talking about. Like one key difference, guys, and keep in mind the Ian team, for example, is strictly like heroic, right? Like you can do it. You did it before heroic. You guys still ran it, but the RNG is so much more. And a great example of this is one of the key things, guys, is if you go to do the Magnora here, this gives Ian one random buff. And like you just said, that could be attack up. Yeah. It could be defense. It could be some crit chance, which isn't great because you get a guaranteed crit either way. Right, yeah. But if that hits crit power up, you're in business, or offense up, like you said. Like that's a massive difference. And that's the big thing you guys need to realize, those that aren't on heroic yet, is that you're going to be able to essentially have way more chances to get RNG to go on your side. And so you might be closer than you think. And so approximately how many people had Ian on your team in the club?
Oh, so let's see. On average, so I'll give you the Ian numbers. We do around 1 million to 1.7 million per Ian team. The lava has around 24 million life. Okay. And so with 10 to 15 Ian teams, you wipe out the lava completely.
How hard is what's the difference between 1.4 to 1.7? Is that hard to get? It's just RNG.
1.4 1.7 is a little bit difficult. The difference, and here's another one of those small things, right? Mm-hmm. You have a T8 Ian. Ian has one piece that is crit damage up more, right? And so you can't see it on yours, but out of the 6 upgrades for T9, you just need one of them, and that makes like that difference that you're talking about.
Yeah. So what he's talking about, guys, is again, I can't see it on my end, but you get the 6 circles around Ian here. It's this one top right here. You're gonna get a more crit chance and a crit power chance. And honestly, that brings me to a great note, guys. On a lot of your characters that are especially like your offense dealers, go to your offense dealers, let's say Eve, right? And you don't need to upgrade maybe Eve all the way up, but go to all of her offense pieces and focus on the offense pieces, right? I mean, do you guys do that to maximize some of your characters?
Yeah. And so the Eve is one of those teams where having T9 Eve makes a big difference, right? So if you have an Eve team, which, is just generally Eve, Gizmo, Duck, Queen of Hearts, a hero, and somebody else, If you have that team and your Eve is T8, you will end up doing on average a 1 million run, right? But if your Eve is T9 and you have the Delta ability upgraded, you can go to 4 or 5 million with that. And like that's a 5x difference for one character going to T9. So Eve is probably the best T9 character from a raid perspective.
Yeah, so I want to talk about Eve, and I actually don't have a video out on it. I know there's some out there. I'll be making one. I'm going to be doing an upgraded team guide on it. And mainly, guys, the reason I don't have an Eve video, it's a very long process of a team. It definitely is, and it's not for those that are wanting to, there is a large separation in time commitment from Ian to Eve. I mean, it's a big time separation, and Eve is also pay to play, right? So if I made if I made an Eve video, not a lot of people have it. However, she's starting to come by a little bit. So with that being said, right? Because I am going to tell you guys in the audience, like you're gonna need a couple whales, most whales or light spin, whatever, in your club to get through heroic, at least at this time. How many people were running Eve?
Yeah, so I think the first time we were running Eve, I think we only had 8 or 9.
Okay.
Right, and out of those 8 or 9, I think 5 or 6 of them were T9, and the rest were T8. And so that was enough to get us through all of the tornado. But to the point that you made is, it took like a 3-4 million Eve run, which is amazing damage. That takes an hour to 2 hours. Like it's a huge commitment. So it takes an hour to 2 hours. It's a lot, right? But if you want heroic faster, you kind of have to have some people that are willing to make that commitment, and we do.
And this is a prime example of a character that's been around. We're going on 8 months. This is one that I hope becomes free to play farmable. Right now, there's not. It's crazy that there hasn't been a character. Like, there's a couple that are thrown in the exchange store, but they're going at such a snail pace, and we don't have any. There's no repetition of this. Like we don't know how long it takes. Like Namari came in store. Namari came out, for a good example, guys. Namari came out in March. Eve came out in 2 months later. Namari's now been in the shop for, I want to say 4 months, maybe 3 months, somewhere in there. And so there's no like track record of when people are coming free to play farmable. But yes, Eve, really important. And again, you had how many? You said 6, 9?
I think 8 or 9.
8 or 9. Out of 50 people.
Exactly, right? And that's perfect. Look, that goes to this formula where it's like, let's say if you, bare minimum, right? You have a club that's super, super committed. Bare minimum, you're looking at 15 Ian teams, which are free to play mostly, right? Across different factions, not that hard to get 15 out of 50. And then the Eve teams, if you can get 8, 9-ish people to get the T9 Eve, right? And again, like you said, out of 50, that's not necessarily everybody, so not everybody has to do that. But if you have just the Ian team, you can easily contribute 1 to 2 million damage, which is a lot.
And how many in total, how many people hit in your raid to get it done?
The first time it was around 41, so around 40 people.
Communication wise, was there anything that stood out for your club how did you guys handle so many different schedules, people with real life jobs, stuff like that?
Look, you get, I think one of the things that's scary is you get 48 hours to beat it, right? Like the 2 days.
Yeah.
And what we were doing for us, it took 20 hours to get through the rock and the tornado, and then it took 4 hours to get through lava and ice. And so like lava and ice are much easier, especially once you got the other 2 out of the way, right? And so what for us really became the key was, how do you get through the rock the fastest, and how do we get a few more people with the Eve teams, so that you don't have to you don't have to ride on someone playing for 2 hours. And so we've gotten a few more Eve teams, but going through the rock faster, that has been really the key. And we've discovered a few tricks actually.
So share some of those. I'm having the Incredibles do a fight on the Ice Titan, guys, while you watch. What are some tricks? What are some tricks on the Rock Titan? Because I 100%, it used to be the Tornado Titan was the big hurdle, but now that Eve teams out there is a little bit easier. You can save those solis for some other teams, but now you can also use those Tornado teams on the Rock Titan. Frozen is one of my favorites, especially on the double heads. But I feel like the Rock Titan, Willis, you really have to capitalize on making sure you do the equal damage to both heads. So what are some tips that you guys for clubs out there, not only in Heroic, but just for the Rock Titan in general?
Yeah, of course. So the hardest thing about the Rock is in this raid, unless there's a debuff, you don't do critical damage, right? And doing critical damage is a huge, huge difference maker. And like you said, you want to split out your damage between the two, but if you don't get that critical damage, you're not going to be able to really hit empowered on both heads. Because the thing about the rocks is once the ground pound comes, you're basically done, right? You saw that when you were running that Elsa, like you can have Elsa at T9. She's not going to survive that ground pound. Nothing really is.
Yeah. Unless you have, you can have offense down, but even to get offense down, you need fear. So it's like, you definitely, you have to have harmful effects.
But let me let you in a secret, man. Okay. There's a few characters and a few things that guarantee that the debuff hits.
And so like that a debuff hits, like in general, that specific debuff, that like a continuous damage, not like all debuffs or specific.
Yeah. So it makes, so there's some, then the tricky thing about DSA is if you're reading your character's details, it'll say guaranteed to apply this. That doesn't mean it's going to hit for sure. That means you don't have to worry about the chance, but the rock's tenacity can still decline it, right? So let me tell you the list of things that always work.
Okay.
Ursula's blind when the eels die, that always lands.
Yep, 100. Yep, seen that a ton. That is huge, and it's a one-turn blind, right?
It's a one-turn blind.
But you get that one turn. Yep.
Then you can extend it actually, which is really funny. So if you land it, you can extend it.
Okay.
Then Horseman, the Headless Horseman, that fear always lands.
Yep, great potency.
Right. Frozones, for the most part, Frozone's slow.
For the most part, there's every now and then it's a little wonky, right? Like it's and there's no reliability. It just sometimes I would say 80% of the time it lands. So
yeah, but I mean, yes, but you should at least get it on one head. Okay, the other one, Jack Skellington, I think everybody knows that's specifically designed for this.
Yep.
Here's some of the secret ones. Shere Khan has one of his hits where if he's in stealth from his basic, it guarantees continuous damage. So that's a guaranteed one.
See, that's one that I like there. That's definitely a cheeky one that like isn't kind of spelled out for you. And so so he has to be within his basic to land the continue. Okay.
And then the last three that we know, right? Belle can reflect. So if she reflects negative debuff, that'll usually stick.
Okay.
Chunk's fear usually sticks, and Mike Wazowski's last special, 25% of the time. That's not very high, but 25% of the time it sticks.
Yeah, I was
going to like these.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say these are the characters, right? Like this list, we made an infographic of this because that's the difference between getting 200k and 400k is being able to crit.
Yeah, to land that 100% to land that damage, especially for teams like Downtown Villains, where it's like the damage they pump out is insane. They need a harmful to get on there regardless. That's why you've seen a lot of people pump that out. I mean, and the thing is, I'm wondering just like how many are out there that are a little bit more cheeky. I know it seems like to me, let me go to the list here. To me, it seems like Maleficent with her passive works out pretty well. I'm going down my character list here. Randall Boggs is one that no one mentioned here. Randall's Vanishing Act will always land fear. Maybe not always, but it's well above Mike's. I want to say it's about a 90% chance you're going to land fear through the tenacity of the rock, which is huge. Yeah, loving that one. Just scanning my characters. The gargoyles are a little bit here and there. Demona here and there. I feel like Hades has increased continuous damage potency on his basic, but it's definitely not. It's definitely nowhere near the level of like Shere Khan and having that guaranteed. And then looking through here. And that's the big ticket, Willis, right? Is spreading these characters out through, not putting them all on one team and spreading them out so that you get as many teams as possible. And realistically, 5-ish for most people. Yeah. That's
it. That's exactly it. And there's some other things, right? So we talk about the things that are really important. Getting offense up, getting crit power up, right? Characters like Barley, characters like Woody that grant crit power up, like you don't really think about that. Other things like extending helpful effects, right? So I was playing a Frozen team and someone recommended, hey, why don't you use Robin Hood? Because you may not be able to land a debuff on the rock, but if you can land a crit right before you show yourself, then that works really well, right? And then Robin Hood extends helpful effects. So which makes Elsa more likely to have more helpful effects, right? Same thing with Ola.
And bigger damage, and it leads to that. Because the big ticket guys, which like everyone at this point should know, is like, I would say once you get to heroic level, for the most part, a lot of people can get to empowered. A lot of teams can get to empowered. It usually takes one or two big characters to get to empowered. The big ticket is the damage pass empowered. And that's why I'm going to bring up the supports here. That's why he's talking about crit damage up and offense up. That's why these characters are so much better. And that's why, guys, a lot of my T9s are supports. If you look here, I've got tons of support T9s. Windy, the reason I like Windy, the shadowing's great, but she can give offense up to Oceanics, which help, and turn meter. Barley, like he was saying, huge. I mean, obviously, Barley is the most reliable. Right now, Barley needs to be the one that you're taking up because of club expeditions, right? I mean, that's the number one that we would recommend. And then he brought up Woody, which we've talked about on stream here, guys. Woody, you have Olaf give his leaf to Woody, which gives tactics, and then Woody does an AoE crit damage up to your entire team. And that's it. There's not a lot of people without RNG coming into play that can give crit damage up outside of that, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah. And one of the things that also kind of impacts this, that's in that vein that people don't think about, and this is where I use Kronk, is magic.
Yes.
Right? On the really big hitters like Elsa, man, getting to land 2 show yourselves, that's huge.
Difference maker.
Right? On Sully, when you have 2 heads, getting to land 2 boost doors, that's also huge. Right? And so you need to try that, and you play, and as you play, you say, okay, can I land 1 or more of these things? And if you can't, think about yourself, how do I make my team a little bit faster? Right, so I was struggling with Sully with making him hit 2 boost doors before the Titan got empowered or before he did his ground pound. And so one of the things I tried is, well, what if I get Ana in there, right? Because Ana will give him more magic and will give him haste. And so messing with speed and magic, that's another one of those things that's like really, really like tight, right? You just finesse, and that makes a 200k damage difference on any team.
Yes. Okay. So that's a great point, guys. The other thing about this raid that people, it's almost a shame how the Forbidden Devs just kind of didn't care about turn meter, guys. Like, it really made it jacked up. You are able to gain such an advantage with haste, which people don't know. It's 50% faster. Haste is a massive improvement. But I want to touch on Willis's point on magic. You guys are going to see the next raid tier list come out. Willis, I think magic's the name of the game, because Barley, in my opinion, is an S tier raid character. Mainly because of, you get the crit, but then you get the magic reduction. He gives himself magic to get the book out again, right? And then you have people like Flynn Rider, guys. Flynn has a 50% chance to steal 1 magic. Now, stealing magic's not as great, but you're able to kind of slow the double fist from the rock, and you're able to slow them down. And it's either, name of the game, it, slow the boss down or speed your team up, right? It's one or the other.
Shan Yu does that great, actually. On the lava or on the ice, once the tornado and the rock are dead, Shan Yu will reduce speed term like nobody else.
Yes.
Another interaction that I love is you put Barley and Elsa and you put Ana behind them.
Yes.
And you have to have, again, speed matters, right? So you want Elsa to go, then Barley to go, then Ana to go. So Elsa does the horse. Barley gives the book to Elsa, gives her magic. Then Ana gives magic to both of them. So Elsa has the horse again, and now you get a 2-turn empowered.
Yep.
Barley gets the book again to give to Elsa again.
And it's like
and
a
now
cycle.
She gets to show yourself out in like 2 turns.
Yep.
Like, it's nuts.
And you're and that's why we have Elsa ranked so high as like a T9, but that's like a reliable, what I would say reliably, it's about a 500,000 damage team, and then you can get higher.
Yeah.
Which is guys, again, damage by numbers. You have 10 people do that. That's 5 million from a frozen team, a free team. Essentially, that's an easy team to get. Very easy team to get.
And the key, right? Like, not everybody has these teams, and that's okay. And you talk about communication. And so one of the things that we did for our club was, all right, you have your Ian teams. Hold on to your Ian teams until the lava. You got your Eve teams, go into the tornado. You have any of these characters that we mentioned, and I'll drop the graphic in the Twitch chat talking about the raids. Use those characters. Like Jack, always use Jack on the rock. Right? Frozen, always use Frozen on the rock. So you can land these debuffs and you can start nailing down at least 400k damage to get both heads empowered.
Yeah, and that's a great point, guys. There's it's almost like don't get too cute in your testing. Like right now, guys, there's enough of the community and enough people, especially in the higher clubs, that have tested every variant you can think of, and for the most part, they've been mostly figured out. There's definitely room for some improvement, but stick with the strategies that are out there in the SCs to use. Another one to call out, guys, is if you have Triton, the amount of people, Slap Zone is big. I love Slap Zone. Slap Zone was an OG team here, but if you can and you have decent Oceanics, try to separate Slap Zone and try to separate Triton from some other people. Even putting together someone like Triton and Mickey, when Mickey pops off his Disneyland Forever, guys, you're getting your whole team, your entire team is going to get a turn ahead of that Titan. Your entire team. Or if you bring in Mickey with Cauldron and Triton, you're having the Cauldron starting to assist. You're having health. And because if you guys don't know, obviously you should by now, but Triton's leadership, if you get healed, it gives 10% turn meter with every tick that heals, which is why Disneyland Forever is great. Or for the whales out there, Tiana and any princess is insane. So magic reduction, harmful effects, speeding up your team via really just Triton lead. and then the little things like communication, and so that you guys aren't all farming the same teams and really being a club. Any last little things, Willis?
No, I mean, I think you've nailed it, right? Like, you can get there, you can get it done. Just have a strong club leadership that gets a sense. Look, not everybody can have a T9 Eve. Not everybody needs a T9 Eve, right? And so having a leader that really looks at your whole roster. And I talk to every single person in my club. That's 50 people. But you need that kind of communication. And you need to look at your rosters and say, okay, we have enough Ian teams. And looking at your roster, you don't really have any of the Ian components, but you have all the Slap Zone components, right? Let's get you and coach you on Slap Zone. We have people like John who put together, like, he has Machine Gun Hades, and that's the team he runs, and he does a really great job at it. And so you don't have to play in the cookie cutter box that everybody else does, but learn what within your roster, what teams you can get the most out of.
100%. And I think, guys, a lot of people might be thinking to yourselves, like, this is a lot of effort to get a heroic done. Yes. But this is in game. This is why, as it should be. Zeus, as you guys have all seen from the channel, is a worthy reward. You're not doing it for nothing. I mean, very, very solid character. So you mentioned something that I want to kind of end on for the raid conversation here, and that's T9 importance, right? So I'm going to go to my characters here. Talk about some T9s with me that you saw as the biggest difference of characters. What were the T9s that really pushed it through? There's 3 T9s that these 3 9s, the difference is more than like at least 500 to 1 million damage. Okay. Right. And again, like you mentioned, these characters, these are the characters that in one hit, they do a ton, or that you have these specific strategies. Eve, a T9 Eve can net you 5 million. Right. We've seen that. A T9 Ian can net you 1.7 million to 2 million. Okay. Right. A T9 Sully can net you 1 million. Okay. Yeah. Like just these one T9 characters, 5 million, 2 million, 1 million. Right? Nobody else compares to that. Nobody. And guys, like, not Hercules, not Beast, they're better characters, sure, but they don't. The difference isn't there at all. Yeah. Like at all. Because nobody survives that ground pound. Yes. Right? Nobody survives that ground pound. Yeah. So those are the main 3. I would agree. I think Sully, obviously, you're getting a huge difference there. Ian, you're getting definitely, at the very least, definitely more. You're having to rely on RNG less. And then, like I said, Eve is obviously going to amp you up from probably being the biggest difference maker, going from like anywhere from 1.5 to up to 5 million damage on Tornado is busted. Now, other characters, guys, that I would recommend that are pretty good as well. Not near as great, but they're definitely more solid. First of all, guys, you don't have to take people to T9. When you go to your supports, a lot of these supports, guys, you just want them faster. So getting 8.75, so getting like Esmeralda speed piece, getting Bell speed piece, Honest speed piece, you don't have to take them up all the way. And I get that it's tough. I get that it's tough to get the gear, but those are ones you don't have to full commit. And then I would probably say Randall, Elsa, and Dash. To me, Dash, Randall, and Elsa, the thing that they all have in common is that they're all able to do a job at such a high level at gear 9. Like Dash can get to 500,000 damage in one tick. Randall is the ultimate utility box, and with him and just Dr. Facilier, you're getting 400,000 plus runs. And then Elsa, we already talked about the show yourself thing. So those aren't as important. I think Dash is close, but there's not a lot of. How many T9s does the majority of you guys have? You know that how much rewards you get after you beat it, and it starts really flooding in. But one or two. It's not a ton, yeah. Because once you hit empowered, that's kind of it. You can't go more, even at T9. What did you have? What were your T9s going in? So my first T9 Eve, right? Just kind of put the club forward, a little bit of whale, so just went ahead with Eve. My second T9 was Elsa, which again, just kind of to show yourself. And you showed me that. And Elsa's another one of those, man. If you don't use right, your Elsa's going to be very disappointed. I was very disappointed for a long time until you showed me the trick where you're like, you have to use Olaf because then you get all these buffs on Elsa and she makes a huge hit. I have a video where I'm hitting 100K per head in one hit, one shot yourself. Right, so it just that makes a huge difference. It adds up. So I would actually say going to the SCs, guys, and looking at the SCs, here's one quick tip, and Willis, feel free to chime in. And I don't know if I have one tip for all of them, but the little things in all of them. So we talked about Olaf. Olaf, guys, it's all about the leaf. It's all about extending the right helpful effects on the characters that can utilize it. Even using warm hugs here. God, what a name. To get, it's a little RNG heavy, but to try to get more of those continuous healing on people. That makes such a huge difference. Huge difference, man. Like if you only have, a lot of people will use his basic. You almost should never use his basic. You're pretty much alternating between the two abilities because you're trying to get the continuous healings on so many people. So that's a big one there. Horn King, easy thing about him, guys, is protect the Horn King. Him and his Cauldron need to go in one kind of area and then protect the hell out of him. Not a lot of crazy things there. Frozone, have any big tips? I mean, I think he's pretty blanket, but
you just gotta do that slow, and then keep as best as you can. Try to keep 4 slows or more on somebody, because that's where he does the extra damage. Okay. Right? If you only have 2 slows, he's not gonna do that extra damage, I don't think.
Mike Wazowski, guys, this is a big one. Mike's one of my favorite characters, and he has a very complex kit. There are so many things about Mike that you guys need to know, so I'll briefly just go ahead and say these. Now, for number 1, scare tactics, guys. It's depending on the role. 9 times out of 10, Cozy Club, it gives tactics too, so you want to keep that in mind. 9 times out of 10, I give this to my support characters because it gives them 2 evades. Your Ana having 2 evades, being able to dodge 2 rocks, keeping her alive for another extension or more turn meter, big difference maker. I don't know if you have her with Ana, but that would be a support, mention. Don't let the kid touch you. If fear is already on the raid boss, which it should be most of the time, you're going to be reducing magic and turn meter. Massive swing, right? Massive swing. Mike, to me, is one of the big key difference makers, and you can even get away with using his leadership. With tanks, it's probably one of the most important roles in the raid because of how much damage. A lot of these raid bosses don't have AoEs until later within the run, and so your tanks are taking so much damage. One thing I'm seeing a lot of people, they're like, Cozy, I can't run the Frozen team. I don't have my Kristoff up. Like, why would I take Kristoff up? No big deal, guys. Eric might even do a better job than Kristoff. He gives Elsa 2 more helpful effects.
Yes.
And, right, I mean, I think you can attest to this. If you give everybody crit immunity and the defense up, you can survive the double hand slam.
Yeah.
Sounds like a wrestling move, the double hand slam.
That's right. Let me, guys, this is a Willis special. Nobody, and I'll go to my deathbed saying this, nobody tanks better than Tiana's Gumbo Pot and Felix. The Gumbo Pot and Felix, that Gumbo Pot can tank anything.
It's disgusting. It is truly, guys, like Tiana is one of the whale characters that's like, it's just, in fact, the whale characters right now are just so good. I mean, it is what it is. The Frank and Tiana are just like such massive difference makers. But so if you guys are getting Tiana up, definitely someone worth taking up. And other tanks that are good, guys, honestly, a lot of these have uses. Maui, pretty dang solid. You can, one of the teams I was suggesting the other day is, guys, Maui's rare to have, but just if you don't have downtown villains, throw Dr. F or Maurice with Maui and just give that man taunt 100 times. Make your freaking Moana supercharged. And then as long as you have a slow on the Titan, which is obviously going to require the rock being down, or with Frozone, you're getting double slap city. Quasimodo has proved very effective. Donald Duck is that hybrid. I'm loving, you're taking Donald up to gear 9 over there.
Yeah, that's my next one. Yeah, I love him.
And then
it's hard.
Chunk, everybody talks about Chunk. The thing about Chunk, guys, is Chunk is one of the greater tanks if you're on heroic. If you're not, his passive can be a coin flip, and if you bring him in and he doesn't do his job, you feel like you kind of wasted your attempt.
That's right. Yeah. No, and that's a really great point. A lot of people ask, what's the difference between T3, T4, and heroic, right? And one of the things that I would recommend, if you think you may be close to heroic, just do it. Just jump ahead and just do it. The first time we did heroic, we didn't even clear 50%. But that really helps you because the thing that you learn in T3, you get resets and you can keep resetting, right? And so you get this false sense of accomplishment of like, yeah, I can use my Ian team 3 times so I can do 5 million damage. That doesn't happen in heroic. And so learning like, okay, where is your club specifically struggling? Try it the first time. Where are you struggling? Yeah. Right? Then who needs to farm what? And that gets everyone motivated too. You start seeing like, okay, I'm 50% of the way. Let's wait a month, right? The second time we ran it, we were 90% of the way. So we just took 2 weeks. We farmed a few more Eve teams, a few more Ian teams. And then we made it.
And that's a great point, guys. The other thing about heroic, once you get up there, is like, yeah, you're able to gauge where you're at, and you're able to just do infinity runs. And you can say, you practice. Practice makes perfect, guys. You're gonna have to practice your runs. It is what it is. Like you can't go in there, watch one video. It doesn't matter how well I explain it, y'all, and know what to do. You're gonna have to see the little intricacies and kind of get your feeling, kind of what Willis was saying earlier. Willis, any other last
one last hot tip? If you try heroic and you're failing, right? You forfeit. If you forfeit, you can immediately then launch T3.
Oh, nice. Okay, like you'll have the tickets. I mean, it'll use your tickets, though. No. So you launch heroic, right? And you get 48 hours. Let's say you play 40 of them, and after 40, almost everybody's spent,
right? In those 40 hours, you've accumulated enough tickets probably to launch T3.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Right. And so you just forfeit and immediately you don't have to wait 2 days. But if you don't forfeit and you lose, then you have to wait 2 days.
So you're really not even wasting all that much time. I mean,
no, you're not wasting. It's worth it. It's worth trying it. It's worth trying heroic.
Worth the testing. All right, man. Well, I like all of the tips, tricks, and everything in between. And that is, guys, we talked about biggest hurdles, key characters, the little things, and trust me, guys. Again, Plan B is the club again that Willis is the leader of, and it's not a strict club. It's not anything that you guys can't get accomplished. Right. It'll take time. Get the fundamentals down. And Willis, I appreciate you coming on and saying hi not only to the Twitch community but the YouTube community as well. And anything else on your way out?
My pleasure. I'll drop. I know we talked a lot about things. I'll drop some of the things in the Twitch chat so you guys can see it yourselves.
Awesome, guys. You guys can go check out the Twitch chat. Put them in the description as well. Willis, thanks for coming on, buddy.
Thank you. Bye,
buddy. Well, hello, guys. We're here with our second two interviewers, or interviewees, I guess, and for the Cozy Fireside Chat. And while the first topic was more about the raids, this is going to be about a lot. The game as a whole, the developmental side, and kind of everything in between. And so I'm going to go ahead and give it to each of you guys to briefly tell us what you do, who you are, and we're going to start with Turbo and work to Doug. Mr. Turbo, how are you today? And welcome to Cozy Fireside, bud.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Cozy. So I've been an app developer for 8 years now. So I make apps for iPhone and iPad. They're mostly utility apps for large corporations. So no side projects. I don't have any interest making anyone's apps. Do not DM me after this.
No, I don't want to make the next Flappy Bird. Okay. Awesome, Timber. And Mr. Doug, bud.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Cozy. So I am a UX developer. Have been doing this for, over a decade. The UX, for those who don't know, user experience, so the look and feel of software. And so I right now work for an online retailer. But I've been doing this in several different industries for a bit.
Awesome. So you guys in YouTube might be asking, well, what does an online retailer and this other guy know anything about DSA and development? It's not going to be talking about more of the gaming development side. We'll be talking about more the business side and some different things. But guys, you have to understand developmental of any app, the same approval processes, the same code writing, and a lot of the same understandings of bugs and the way that the terminology is spoken about coexist. Would that be correct? Awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, all right, guys. So let's go ahead and we've got a good amount to cover, but I think the first in chat, feel free to those that are in the live Twitch chat now, feel free to go ahead and put things, and we'll go ahead and look in there. But let's go ahead and kind of start this out with what the heck is going on with the bugs and the user interface. I'm going to give it to Doug first. What the heck is going on? And you guys can feel free to bounce off each other too. But what the heck is going on with everything? And what is your opinion on the game right now?
You know, in software, you can never cure or fix or prevent 100% of the bugs. So there's always going to be bugs. It's just a matter of getting it to the point where you're happy with, where the bug threshold is. And right now, in the game, I would say it is past the critical threshold. It's to the point where it's dramatically affecting how the game plays, the enjoyability of the game. And so, I think personally the way it got to this, and Turbo, Cozy, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I think the Glue team, for others in software, they can probably attest to this too. Glue pumps out content. And I know there's folks out there that are going to say, oh, it's been this long since we have had a last character or whatever. But they pump out content, and it's kind of a zero-sum game. If you're spending time releasing new things, you're not spending time fixing old things, or improving the quality of it. And I think for so long they've just been so focused on releasing new content that the tech debt, the bugs build up.
I mean, I've been playing since launch, right? And guys, from what I've seen, and by the way, quick note, for those of you on YouTube or watching, y'all, plenty is said on stream here that maybe not all the way makes its way to YouTube, but I want to stress this. I've been playing this game since launch, and I've seen this game go through different states, and I've seen the developers of this game care in different states. When the game first came out, I would say there's bug fixes on the regular, and we were informed of what the bug fixes were. There's definitely bugs, and there will always be bugs. You guys can go watch the video we just made on that. However, there was a pretty good ebb and flow of content and also fixing the game that's already out there. We talk about the metaphor of the house with the cockroaches. Definitely fixable, but I've seen this go through stages, and right now is the stage that has me the most like, what is going on? What is going on a top level scale? of the care for the house, that like we like to say. Let's pass it to Turbo for a second and get to the core root of all of it.
Sure. Yeah. So I'd like to start off by saying, like, there are several different processes for development, and what the big trade-off, and each company is different, is speed versus quality. So you can actually be an app that cares more about quality and pushes out things slowly, or you can be one that is trying to get stuff out as fast as possible, fearlessly. If you're doing the quality side, you're not going to have as many bugs to fix, but you're going to spend more time up front code reviewing and making sure everything is solid to begin with. If you are focusing on speed, like DSA does, you should be, allocating like 30% of the time to bug fixes after you focus on that speed.
I want to go ahead and touch on that, because one thing I want to touch on is the quality assurance that you just talked about. Now, I see someone in the chat talking about playing multiple games. I come from plenty of these hero collectors, and I want to say this first, guys. No matter if you play Marvel Strike Force, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, no matter what you play, there's always going to be issues. There's always going to be issues in these types of games, and there's going to be different issues, and the grass is always greener. But what I will say largely here, what blows my mind, probably the largest out of the quality assurance side, is that guys, I can't speak for the devs. Contrary to what everyone thinks, I cannot speak for them, and I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But to me, what is kind of interesting me on a business front, guys, because I come from business, I come from managing hundreds of different people. Like you said, Turbo, if they spent the money in quality assurance and making sure that these bugs weren't out there, your total asset, and as a manager reporting to higher ups, you'll spend less money overall, because the time is still having to go in. Someone's still having to fix the bugs that are coming out, and someone's having to, your labor cost of this company that's building this game is still having to fix the bugs and fix everything going on, rather than just getting a really banger quality assurance team that could solve this.
If people have this impression that the software's quality, that it's a great product, that there's a lot of care put into it, when stuff does go wrong, they don't complain. People don't complain as quickly. They're not, calling up support as quickly. It's kind of one of those, well, that happened. And so I think what's understated a lot of times is the impact that that having quality and a low level of bugs, threshold out there, what it does to also just maintain calm among the user base.
Because there's the obvious bugs that are like, they need to be fixed. Like there's the froze zones that you can't hide. It's going to be there. It's too popular for character. And then you have someone like Madam Mim's passive, right? So like you're not going to have a ton of people out there, of a few of them, complain about Madam Mim, whereas froze zone's more obvious. But the problem is if you keep not fixing even the little ones that are stacking up, which has been the problem here, is you're now creating a library or a family or an infestation of these bugs. And so how is and we'll get to different subjects, but how is the bug problem fixed in a reasonable manner? If you two were to handle this, right, or whatever, if you're going to give your best guess, how is it handled? How do they fix the house? How do they clean it up?
I think that it's really important to actually have someone else look at things, because there are some which we'll touch on that later, but some of these you might see Maleficent's Dragon. So the person that creates Maleficent's Dragon, they need to test that it does trigger or does not trigger. So they create the dragon, they do sanity testing, they get it to go off, they get it to not go off with Ursula, and then they're done. But they don't have a second person check, and that person, maybe they didn't check Ursula, maybe they checked Dr. F and his polymorph. And now we know, Dr. F's polymorph maybe doesn't actually trigger, it doesn't stop the dragon, and it should. So that would be a case where something gets caught. And so, the second set of eyes, like the text, if you're coding something, you're not looking for to fail, you're checking to make sure that your tests pass. So you're not trying to test against the null hypothesis and things like that. You're trying to prove yourself correct, not break your own stuff.
So question with that,
happy cases.
Question with that though, right? For those that are not like I know a bit about coding, but like let's say they're testing in the battlefield, and I want to talk about like actual testing the game, guys. Like I want to talk about developers playing the game, and we'll get to that in a moment. But I want to talk about the code side, I guess, with that maybe you can help people understand. So let's say a polymorph, right? You cleanse it with wand, and they stay in the sea pulp. Okay. What are you looking for on a developer side that's saying that that's not working? Or is that something that you strictly have to see from just playtesting? Is that something you can see on the back end because it's a graphical error? You know what I mean? Like, what are you seeing there?
Oh, yeah. You would need steps to reproduce it. So a user would need to show you specific steps. Then the developers get feedback from those steps. Then they try to reproduce the issue themselves. And they basically set breakpoints in their app, things like that, where they can find the state of the game that causes this that's unexpected, and it's usually a logic error from an unexpected timing, or something with the animation causes what's called a race condition, things like that.
But then the problem is, to me, what that says, and I don't know this, and again, I'm not talking for any devs that are watching this, I'm not talking to you personally, but like, for what that shows me, and why I actually think it's important to have a player-based testing unit as well, but we'll get to that later. What that shows me is, are the devs playing the game enough on the client side, or on the side that we're seeing? You know what I mean? Because wouldn't it be pretty strikingly obvious on some of these things? Yeah,
right. Some of it's very easy. Some other things, like I think that Ralph, right? He's designed to remove like 9 buffs. He's designed to beat Sensational 6. Someone can just eyeball that and think that'll do it, and they don't test that. They test that Ralph does remove buffs, but they don't actually test that game. Yeah. And then Donald and Daisy hit Ralph 6 times and kill Ralph. Yeah. Right. So I don't think that's tested.
Okay.
Right? But I think that stuff is functionally tested.
Doug, I want you to talk about, I know you've talked about the coding and how it's interesting that it's written in Swift and different coding, that some of these bugs are kind of hard for you to conceive too. Doug, what's some of your opinions on this?
It's tough because, yeah, there are some that as you're playing, like especially like the Elsa right now, where if she's the last character there and she's in stasis, you can't do any attacks because of whatever reason. Some of those you're like, oh, how did they not catch this? And so sure, that's an easy one. But then there's other ones that it's and I can't come up with a great example right now, but where it requires such a crazy stack up of rare conditions, like if you're playing this character against this character and there's this buff on them and this debuff, some of those stack ups are just really tough to test or conceive to test. And so I can understand how some of those get through, because again, you can't test every possible combination that's imaginable out there. So there are some crazy bugs that are going to get through.
Which that brings you to a point like Zeus. I brought this up, guys, when Zeus first came out. Am I 100% certain that the invincibility loop that kind of goes on with him was tested? The reason I say no is because I don't know, and again, I don't know how the process works, but you have to, if you're testing a maxed out Zeus, maybe that's getting tested, and that's not a maxed out thing. And I don't know if they test them at all level 1 abilities, all level 2. It would have to be very specific testing. So I don't know if that's getting done to that level. Nor does that costs a lot of money. But again, if you spend the money to have quality assurance now, you won't have to spend the money later on the labor. I think, guys, the last logical giant bug bash was back in almost a year ago, a big one. And I said this to you guys, but to me, what's important is communication, because I think if communication is there, people understand and your player base understands. Frozone has a bug, you should address it. And if he has it fixed, you should address it. Even if it was at the bottom of update notes as just a bunch of gibberish, I think it's important to have in there. Would there be a reason that that's not being included as developers? Would you guys put that in your app changes? I think that's basic, no?
It is. Even if you don't specify the specific ones that you have fixed, you should either indicate that there were gameplay issues fixed or that there weren't, so that players aren't. That's the whole point of why am I doing this app update? Because every time there's any update at all, I always go check for character changes to see if something is fixed. It'd be really nice to know whether or not I should even, try to check that.
And those people, like, we know a couple of devs. Our Amazon is one that's on. She's amazingly hard worker. And a lot of these people are incredibly hard workers and they do an amazing job. To me, though, some of this seems like it's more on a business front. And that's where some of the issues are coming in. and it's just curious to see where it goes. I'm curious to see where it goes because again, this is it for Disney games. Disney's not even great at making games. I'm going to make a video on that. They're not great at making games in the first place, and this is about as great as it gets. They have such a well-polished gym. They put in this whole giant graphical interface update. Wouldn't have come to the game unless they had big plans for it. I'm just curious to see where it goes from here. How does this not happen again, I guess, Doug? I know you wanted to touch on that.
I think a key thing preventing this from happening again is that there has to be, and Turbo can talk about this too, when you're doing software development, you pretty much just put all the things you want to build, and then every 2 weeks you grab the next couple things that are the highest priority and you work on those, and then the next 2 weeks you reassess and you figure out the next the next set of highest priority things. And it's so compelling, and what you want to do so often is just build the new stuff. But what you have to do, and this is something like our company does, I'm pretty sure Turbo's does too, is you have to build in some of those things you do every single time to be just fixing bugs, maintaining the code, those kind of things that are boring, not necessarily something that's going to bring in more money, but it's something that keeps the software healthy. And so that's just moving forward. I think there just has to be a realistic, yes, fan base. I understand you want new characters. I know you want new modes. I know you want new whatever, but it's going to come out a little slower because we're going to keep the game really healthy. It's a tough battle.
I think the biggest thing is the priority system, and developers don't have control over what is top down in the stack.
It's a manager thing, right? I mean, and actually I'll always say this, and maybe it's because I was a manager myself. For those that aren't on Twitch, thank you guys so much for the hype train. I will almost always blame managers over the employees. I mean, because typically you're a leader of, and this sounds terrible, but you typically you're a leader, and there's bad managers, plenty, but you are the leader there. You're the leader there, and I'm not. This is not calling out the managers at Glue, anything like that, but typically organization from the top down is always where it is, and as you work your way to the top, there's something that when it comes from here down, that's the issue. It may not be up here, it could be even here, but it's going down, and that is, to me, learning how to manage these incredible, talented people is why it's so hard to make video games. Everyone would do this if it was easy to do, guys, and that's the thing to remember as well. So, guys, I think this was great for you guys to come back on. Doug, any closing comments from you, buddy?
Yeah, just wanted to kind of, as Turbo was alluding to, how there's the QA testers, there's the verse, which is different than the actual developers. It's the same way on the art side. There's the art, actual folks who are doing the models, the rendering, all that type of stuff, which is very different than the buttons, the menus, the things like that. I know you see a lot of folks in Gen Chat just like rail on the app as a whole, or just lump all these different things together, and they have to realize that there's a lot of different functions that play here, and just to lump everything together is just not fair to the folks who are working on this and really crushing it in maybe one area, but another area needs part. That's the one thing, is just realize that making software is not simple, and I think just to temper those comments as folks just rail on it because they didn't get their 10 beta runes or whatever. Well,
and also Turbo's talked about this too before, where also like guys that don't like the graphical update, it is not as easy, right, Turbo, than just pressing Control Z and be like, we're done, let's revert it to the old one, right?
To do something like revert all of those graphics that were worked on for months would take even longer to revert those, and there would be so many bugs. The app would probably crash.
Yeah,
there would be things missing. It would be terrible. So I'd like us to, instead of trying to say like, oh, just revert everything, we have to move forward. Take what is in the app now that has been paid for, by the way. So developers have already, they've already been paid to implement this stuff. We can suggest changes like change the font, not start all over.
Well, and nobody likes change. Nobody likes change, guys. If I were to say Halo, okay, if I look at you and I say Halo, and then I also look at you and say Battle Royale, it makes people vomit. Probably going to be an amazing game mode, but it's not Halo. And so if that were to come into the game, it is a game-changing thing. People don't like change regardless, and that's with anything in life. And it's part of life is accepting change and then learning how to take that change and advance from that change, right? But so I would 100% agree there, and I think it's all about learning. But guys, Again, if you guys are watching or listening on YouTube here, podcast or whatever the heck I decided to put this on, probably tomorrow's YouTube. These are not Glue developers. These are two great guys that are honestly, both of them very active in the community, very active players. I mean, I would say some of the top active players that I know and that I talk to on a regular basis. And so I want to say, thank you guys for spending your valuable off time to come here and talk and try to help educate people a bit and coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, absolutely. All right, my friends. Well, thank you so much for stopping by today's Cozy Fireside Chat. And again, a little bit of an unconventional video, but hopefully you guys learned a thing or two about the raids and a lot about what it takes and what it's like to be a developer for these games. A lot of great conversation and a lot of great points altogether. Guys, if you want more things and more conversations like this, go ahead and check down in the description below to catch us out on Twitch. And if you guys want more podcast style videos like this, let me know down in the comments below. You guys have a great rest of your day, and until next time, stay cozy.